So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital
Today we're going to be talking
revolution.
about a pretty big decision out of the Connecticut court, specifically surrounding the employer's right to terminate employees when they're still using medical marijuana. And in this case, they're using medical marijuana on the job itself. This employee was actually impaired and admittedly impaired by the marijuana. So in this Bartolotta versus Human Resources of New Britain, they agreed, the Connecticut court agreed with the employer, even though the employer was alleged to have violated the Connecticut's Palliative Use of Marijuana Act and the urinalysis drug testing statute. And so this was one of the first times that they looked at a lawsuit of this nature, but ultimately they gave good guidance to employers about what reasonable suspicion drug testing looks like. So in this case, the Bartolotta was employed as a teaching assistant at like a daycare, and she had a medical marijuana card, but the employer had policies that they continued that actually prohibited employees from working under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And she ultimately, Bartolotta, didn't disclose the medical marijuana usage. And then one day in early 2019, a teacher saw Bartolotta call a child by the wrong name. And when asked questions, the Bartolotta said, well, she was just out of it, and told him that they're getting used to medical marijuana and her head's just not right yet. Teacher reported that up through the chain, and at that time, Bartolotta said, I use it to treat an underlying medical condition. And so as a result, this is a consideration under the Americans with Disabilities Act. But here, she told her boss at Human Resources that she reported to work even though she had used too much of this medical marijuana. She got suspended, of course. However, when she had her drug test, it actually came back negative. But and it's important to note it came back negative a week after the date of the incident, which is a little bit strange. Anyone who is drug tested in this manner should be drug tested immediately. But because Bartolotta admitted that she was actually using marijuana while on the site, it ultimately violated the terms of the drug and alcohol policy. And all of this was pretty interesting because Bartolotta was honestly heavily accommodated. She had seizures, and there was a whole workbook on how to handle her seizures. I mean, she was alleging disability discrimination, but ultimately, the employer really did a good job accommodating her seizure disability, for example. And so this decision out of the Connecticut court really supported the employer's right to stop the use of marijuana in the workplace, even if they're covered under medical marijuana and by the Americans with Disabilities Act. The court here said that you have to be very prescripted. The Bartolotta lost primarily because they weren't able to show that they were terminated because they had the prescription for medical marijuana, but rather because they reported in a safety sensitive job to work, and that's ultimately what she was terminated for. What's interesting is that in addition, Bartolotta was suspended previously, and this bolstered the court's opinion because it was clear that previous to having a medical marijuana card, and it was clear that this business did not care whether or not someone used marijuana, but that, and it was clear that the business was concerned for the risk of the child. In addition, the court guided reasonable suspicion. Right now there's a Connecticut statute that allows employers to drug test only if they can do a reasonable suspicion of impairment affecting job performance. So you can't just do drug tests willy-nilly. You have to have a reasonable suspicion, and it has to impact job performance. But here it was clearly impacting Bartolotta's job performance, and as a result, they were upheld for drug testing her. This poses some interesting questions, specifically surrounding drug use in the workplace, specifically surrounding the disability. At this point, medical marijuana is still too risky to take while in the workplace. Many companies do not have to accommodate for it, especially when someone is impaired. And it's important that employees know this line and know what they could be facing. I think that there is a really strong encouragement at this time to stay as far away from medical marijuana, specifically if your job drug tests, as you can, because a disability will not save you in many states, and didn't even save this person here. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.